Tighten your lines as we get ready to sail the seven seas on the Political Pirate Podcast. Join Captain Ted Yoho and the salty dog John Martin as they search far and wide for the greatest treasure of all, the truth. From local Florida news to nationwide stories and the globe beyond, we've got it all mapped out. Now here's your hosts, the salty dog John Martin and Captain Ted Yoho.
Well, welcome to the Three Ps, the Political Pirate Podcast, featuring yours truly, the old host of the show, the Salty Dog, and the captain of our, John Martin is my name, by the way, and the captain of our pirate ship, still in the Keys, Captain Ted Yoho. Good morning, Ted. How the heck?
Good morning. It's a great day in the Florida Keys, and unfortunately, all good things have to come to an end, and I am leaving tomorrow, going back to the metropolis of Willatka, Florida, right on the St. Johns River.
So you're finally getting bailed out down there. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, I'm getting bailed out, you know.
Are you getting a bracelet, a different type of bracelet? I'm just kidding you, man.
Yeah, I don't have to wear an ankle bracelet when I leave. We did go down to Key West, and not the type that I, in my youth when we went down there. We just had a very nice time, my wife and I, Carolyn.
Nothing wrong with that, man. Enjoy it.
It's just great. Yep.
Well, we want to start out the show real quick. We won't get too in depth in it because there's a lot of details still sketchy. But I want to give kind of a shout out to Rudy Giuliani. Apparently, he was in a major accident Saturday night, I think it was, and he's in the hospital. I don't know what his condition, but it sounds like it was pretty serious. And it's kind of sketchy exactly what happened because the preliminary reports are that he was actually trying to assist some woman on the side of the road that had some kind of domestic violence issue and then got rear-ended after that. I really don't know overall. But, I actually feel a little connection to Giuliani because when I first went up to New York City and worked in the mid-'80s, that's when he was starting to make a name for himself with the Teflon Don. And I'm not talking about Donald Trump, Gotti and all that. So I kind of watched firsthand how Giuliani kind of rose up in the ranks there. But any thoughts on that, Ted?
No, I mean, you hate to see anybody go through those kinds of things. And I'm like you, I'm waiting to get more of the details of the story. He's had a tough life. I mean, he's had a blessed life. He's done some great things. Then he had to go through the Trump era witch hunts that they went after and destroyed that guy. And I remember one of the Yankees rings he had, they were going to confiscate that to pay his the fine he had against those two broadcasters. And, that they just destroyed the guy. But we'll find out more about that. Wish him the best, and I hope he recovers from this speedily.
Well, you just brought up something, as always, Ted, following me, and I'm not even getting into the details of Giuliani and whatever, but it does seem like that people who were working with or for Donald Trump can definitely be overcome by this lawfare and all of that type of stuff. The Don himself seems to have some Teflon to him because, just who he is and how he operates. But I say that to say, if you think about what happened to a lot of the people that worked for President Trump in his first term, it's amazing to me that he got such high quality people willing to step forward this time around because they kind of put, and we saw this through the confirmation process, they kind of put themselves potentially in harm's way. And the only thing I can explain about their willingness to do it is because they're patriotic Americans and really believe that the fate of the country is at stake. I didn't know if you wanted to comment on that, but it just kind of popped in my head.
No, who's in charge of Breitbart now? What's that guy's name?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Anyways,
it'll come. He used to do a show, but he's kind of.
Right. But I mean, he got indicted, and I don't. Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about Steve Bannon, who used.
Yeah, Steve Bannon. Yeah. And then, Mark Meadows, he's still going through legal challenges. He was chief of staff. I served with Mark. And then, you can just go down the list of these people. Peter Navarro, who's in the administration now at the White House, he served, I think, 3 months in jail because he wouldn't he was held in contempt by Congress because he wouldn't show up for a subpoena. And the list goes on. The price people pay to serve this country, and like you said, the people that are serving now in the Trump administration, knowing what happened to the people in the first one, it is for love of country, nothing else. And they will not be rattled, they will not be shaken, and they will not vary from what their beliefs are. And you gotta take a lot of pride in people like that. But you go back to Rudy Giuliani, you look at how he was tough on crime. He's the one that everybody credited him with profiling. Well, we all profile when we see people. We assess them right now. It's the fight or flight that's traits that are innate in us that root out danger. And I think of Obama said, I'm a black guy and I'm going down the streets somewhere and there's a group of black guys over here. I'm going to walk to the other side. That's profiling. And so he cleaned up the mess in New York City, and then we've seen it deteriorate since then to where it is today. And, praise God for them. They've got a socialist mayor that's polling over 50% in the polls. Zoran Mamdani, a socialist at best, communist at heart.
Absolutely. Well, I know this is an unpopular thing with the Democratic leadership, but I'm going to say it anyway, Ted. My thoughts and prayers go out to Rudy Giuliani and his family.
I was going to say that,
it's just crazy how that's become an issue.
You'll probably get attacked by Jen Psaki.
Yeah, I hear you, man. All right. Well, a couple of quick things before we get into the meat and potatoes of the show. I got to give a shout out. You mentioned my shirt off the air. Go Gators. The college football season started this weekend and actually culminates tonight. I guess there's a Monday night college game on tonight. But the Gators won in huge fashion. They were playing Long Island State, which I would classify as one of the sisters of the poor. But all the Florida teams, including that school up north somewhere, Northwest, FSU, I think they call it, they had a big win against Alabama. And, of course, Miami won against Notre Dame last night. So I give a little praise to all the fans of Florida teams because they pretty much all did well.
That's because we are the free state of Florida. And
absolutely.
We can exercise our rights for liberty and freedom and choose. And, it was a great day for Florida football, like you said. And, for the Gators, to have a game like this where it was 55-0, I think, first shutout in a long, long time. Yeah, it was a smaller, unknown school, but yet this is a great way to work out kinks in your offense and defense and get people positioned and try them out, and then go into the serious games. So it was great. Just a great day in Florida all over.
Absolutely. Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Happy Labor Day to everybody out there.
Happy Labor Day.
Is Labor Day. And I didn't put this in the notes, but I was thinking about it this morning that Donald Trump may be, and this is something I never thought I would say, not about him, but a Republican president. He's transformed the Republican Party that is actually now, Ted, the party of working people.
It really is. It really is. And, that's funny because you go back to the old true Democrat Party was the party of the working man. The song by Alabama, talked about, the Democrat Party and the party of the working man, Alabama, the country group. And then you look at it today and the Democrats, they've just gone, well, they're not Democrats. That other party they're searching for identity. And let's hope that they stay lost in the forest. And that the Republican Party, the MAGA movement, is really something that has grasped the nation, and it really is a signal to the rest of the world. And we're seeing a lot of countries in Europe change now. They're going more right all over the world.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to start out the show today with a story coming to you out of Bloomberg. The biggest probably news event, especially in the United States, happened over the weekend, late Friday night, actually. And U.S. trading partners, it says in this title here, are dazed and confused after tariff court loss. So let me read this a little blurb, and I'll turn it over to you, Ted. Trump's global tariffs, according to this article, is deepening after federal appeals court ruled the levies were issued illegally under the emergency law extending the chaos in global trade. That's their words. Basically, what happened is a federal court has ruled that Donald Trump didn't have the illegal authority to use the act he did, or it didn't apply to the tariffs the way he used them, and that they're going to suspend them. And we'll get into how it's not going to happen overnight. But what are your thoughts on that, Ted?
This is something I thought, I think back when he started doing this, I had those kind of same thoughts. Are these things legal or not? And what I've learned about President Trump is he's going to move what he thinks right. He's got great intuition. So he's going to move to change the narratives. And they knew lawsuits were going to come. I mean, it was just understood lawsuits are going to be challenging these tariffs for him doing this unilaterally. And there's a precedent, I think it was under Carter or Nixon, it was under Nixon, the International Emergency Economic Plan on tariffs, that you can use that as a tool to justify why they're doing this. Keep in mind, John, when President Trump took office the second go around, we're approaching $1.3 trillion trade imbalance with all these other countries. That means they had more favorable trade of our products going into their country that was detrimental to us and our manufacturers. And so Trump, this was something he wanted to balance. You go back to in some of his interviews back in the 80s and 90s, and he talked about this. So this is something that he's focused on, and we're going to change these tariffs. We're going to do what we think is right, and let the courts work this out. And I think there was an argument by one of the judges that said that we're going to do this because he doesn't have the authority that International Emergency Economic Powers Act says that this is not in that. But the Supreme Court, the other article I read said that is the justification to do this, because it says there's no language that says he can't use tariffs as an emergency adjustment for the nation. And so I think you're going to see him win on some of these. If he doesn't, I think there's going to be a lot of lawsuits for damages done by manufacturers, extra prices, and other countries maybe could sue us too. Let's just hope this works out in favor of the United States and President Trump.
Well, you think about it, if you go back and remember presidents, and there's which ones pop out and that kind of thing, generally speaking, it's those that push the envelope. To a certain extent, because of what you just said about President Trump. And even today, it's more true than if you wait for Congress to do anything right now, you'll be waiting forever. So, the left tends to want to say that Donald Trump is trying to be unconstitutional. I don't believe that at all. I think he's pushing the envelope because he's trying to take us where he thinks we need to be. Because this is something I've always said, Ted, based on something my dad told me a long time ago. Anybody can take you where you want to go, but a true leader takes you where you need to be. And I think that is really what Donald Trump is all about. And I'll turn it back to you, sir.
No, I think you're right on that. And you brought up, if you wait for Congress to do this, it'll never happen. I mean, that's the inactivity of Congress. Again, you've got people up there that are more worried about their next election. Those are the true politicians, instead of people that are worried about their next generations, which are the statesmen. And most of the people up there, they'll talk a good game, but they don't want to press the status quo. They don't want to challenge the status quo. And if you don't do that, you get a slow race to the bottom. And through just by benign neglect, ignorance, or incompetence, you get into the situation where we are when you have a 1.2 or $3 trillion trade deficit. That doesn't happen overnight. That happens from inactivity of Congress. When you get the amount of illegal immigrants, people that came into this country, that doesn't happen overnight. It's through ignorance, incompetence, or by design, because people don't want to make those hard decisions, John. But because if you make a hard decision, you know what? You might have to be accountable for that. And that's what so many of these politicians don't want to do. They'll put their finger up into the wind and say, oh, this is popular today, so this is the way I'm going to vote. And so many times people did that. And So I can't tell you how many times I put bills in where I wanted Republicans to sign on, and they said, "Well, Yoho, this looks like we're cutting something. We have the election coming up, and I don't want to be viewed as cutting anything." And it's just politics.
Absolutely, and that's only been exacerbated.
It's lack of a backbone. They got jelly backbones, is what it is.
Well, true, and it's only been exacerbated by social media.
Oh,
and they all
absolutely.
kind of want to be influencers and that kind of thing. But I've always said, remember this: you can only coast downhill, because if you can't coast uphill, and if you're on level ground, you eventually stop. You can only coast downhill, and
you can't stay static in a moving stream. You got to paddle.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this decision was a 7-4 decision by a panel of judges. But the judges, this is interesting. The judges left open the levies intact for a while. The case proceeds as Trump had requested and suggested that any injunction could potentially be narrowed to apply only to those who sued. So this is probably going to go to the Supreme Court. Now, I want to make a point on this and turn it back to you. Those that sued are generally large importers with skin in the game, like a big toy importer from China. But here's an interesting part of the suit. New York Attorney General Letitia James, who is a party to the tariff lawsuit, this is what she said. These tariffs are a tax on Americans. They raise costs for working families and businesses throughout the country, causing more inflation and job losses. Now, that may or may not be true, but here's the problem I have, Ted. Ms. James embraced Mandami early on in the primary. She is 100% working for Mandami, and he's a socialist / communist or communist / socialist. They're not going to do a darn thing for small businesses and going to raise taxes. That's his platform. And the working people will all basically be the same. Because one thing about communism, it has a way of just leveling out the middle. There is no middle class.
There is no middle class.
What's your thoughts about that portion of it?
No, I think she showed her true colors there. And for her to give economic advice to anybody, who would want to listen to her? There is a tax. Yeah, there's going to be some adjustment on prices and things like that. But the trade deficit of $1.2 to $3 trillion has driven jobs and manufacturing out of America because it's cheaper to produce in another country. This, I see it as a way of adjusting that playing field. And a lot of these companies are coming back because of these tariffs. They want to create manufacturing here. Look at the investments that have come into America when Trump started announcing. It's in it might even be in the trillions of dollars by now. One company announced $600 billion, another one $800 billion. And so these are manufacturers coming back here, creating jobs in here. So how's that losing jobs? This is a lady, she's anti-Trump, and it's like he said in that quasi-semi-State of the Union address he did to Congress, doesn't matter what I say, they will be never Trumpers. And so she is a never Trumper, and she's got her feelings hurt because the judge struck down her erroneous and excessive fine that she put on President Trump. Unprecedented, And so she's got sour grapes. Get her out of here along with her communist mayor. And you're talking about he's a communist, maybe socialist. All socialism leads to communism. And,
I think he may be communist first.
Yeah, I think so. He's hiding under the cloak of socialism. And so, New York, wake up. Gosh, damn. I don't know what you're waiting on, but you don't want this.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Trump said about the court ruling, he said it would be a total disaster for the country if they overturn these tariffs. And he's probably right in a sense, whether you agree or not agree, to just have all this stuff happen and then upturn it like overnight, so to speak, probably would be disastrous. But if true, the Democrats have this saying, if true, and then they can say anything they want. They don't care about this. They don't. If it's disastrous for the country, they don't care because their only concern is to stop Trump at any cost. And if you want proof of this, we played this video a couple of shows back, but I want to play it again because this is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Oh, you're killing me, John. You're killing me. I watched this kid.
Yeah, in Trump's first administration, and she's talking about the need to impeach Trump and why you got to impeach Trump. And I think people really need to remember this, especially if they haven't seen it before. Check it out, and we'll come back and talk about it.
We also need to move quite quickly because we're talking about the potential compromise of the 2020 elections. And so this is not just about something that has occurred. This is about preventing a potentially disastrous outcome from occurring next year.
Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, thanks so much for joining us.
And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak, or something like the north end of a southbound mule. Ocasio-Cortez tells you in that snippet that we must impeach Donald Trump, not for what he's done, but for what he might do. Future crime. That is what the Democrats are willing to go to. And they don't care about that, Ted, let alone they don't care about the nation. They only care about power. They certainly don't seem to care about, on this Labor Day, the American workers. But I know you're a big fan of AOC. So tell me if I'm wrong on this.
I've already spoke about her. I don't need to say much more other than she's just clueless. You look at when, like you said, impeach him for what he might do. That fits right into the Democrat mindset because look at what Biden did. Gives preemptive pardons for what people might do. So Trump ought to fit right into that, according to her. But when she is so sincere when she's talking, I can see her dabbing her eyes because she wants to cry on other things. She's so insincere. She's selling all this information. It's been proven that he colluded with the Russians. The fact is, the Democrats made all that up. It was a lie. She bought into the lie or knew about the lie. And so that makes her either ignorant or a liar, to go along with that argument. And, why the people of New York keep putting her back there, I don't know. We hear all kinds of stories that she's the least effective in her district. We played that thing about the brothels, the hookers in her district, and she's never been down there. And, she's embracing Zandani, another communist. So, New York, you get what I don't want to say you deserve it, but you get what you don't pay attention to. And if you want communism, keep doing what you're doing. You're doing great.
Well, we're going to take a quick commercial break and come right back. If you would like to be a sponsor of our show, look at the tagline up there that says Contact Freddie. We'd love to have you. Of course, we want you to support our sponsors and like and share what we're doing for.
We sure do.
We'll be right back.
We'll be right back.
Although the owner of Lewis Oil Company maintains she is 29, Lewis Oil turns 60 years old in June. Chevron would like to recognize the North Florida second-generation family-owned business, celebrating its growth and staying power. Lewis Oil Company maintains significant on-hand supplies, strategically located fuel depots, a delivery fleet, on-site service, fuel card locks, and convenience stores. Lewis Oil Company understands its responsibility in the local economy by providing service and delivery on demand and in crisis. As a first responder for 18 Florida counties and the Southeast from Texas to Virginia, we are proud of this rare accomplishment. Lewis Oil delivers.
This is Ward Scott, and I want to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. The Ward Scott Files premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care.
Meldon Law, the only official injury partner of the Florida Gators.
The Ward Scott Files Gold sponsors are Lewis Oil Company,
Shoot GTR,
On the Spot Dry Cleaners, R&R Construction, and Style Cuts. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, you can visit our website, www.wardscottfiles.com, and click on the Advertise Here banner on the right side of the page, or call my friend Freddie at 352-284-3733. Again, thank you to all the great businesses that support the Ward Scott Files. And remember, if you like the show, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. May God have mercy on your soul.
Or that very much surprises me that you've never been tased.
You can't handle the truth.
All bees poop.
A warthog. He's going to come up the steps. Here he comes. Oh my goodness, and he's huge. Hello, boy. Wonder if we can pet him. Hi, boy.
Can we touch him? No, thanks.
Help me! Help! Help!
Well, we're back to the 3 Ps, the Political Pirate Podcast. And I tell you, Ted, our thoughts and prayers go out to whoever that warthog in the commercial there attacked, because you're going to need thoughts and prayers for that for sure.
That keeps me grounded in my roots as a large animal veterinarian. I just, to see the people, the greenhorns we call them, that don't know anything about livestock, like, oh, isn't he cute? Let me go up and pet him. Or like those people out in the national parks wanting to pet a bison, or you see it at Lake Alice at the University of Florida, people wanting to do selfies with alligators, and they're down there like this. And
with their dogs.
Yeah, or their kids. Their kids. I mean, it's just...
It's crazy.
That's
but we're gonna kind of switch gears here a little bit and talk about how deep is the deep state, because it's pretty deep. I want to play a quick video that we've played. It happened about 2 weeks ago in D.C. during the crackdown, and this is a Department of Justice, turns out to be employee who attacks a police officer.
This is not a Subway sandwich commercial.
Subway guy. And anyway, it's comical in one sense, but also tells you a lot about what's happening.
It sure does.
When we watch this person worked or did work. He's been fired now for the Department of Justice. Let's play that and we'll come back.
Mother.
I don't mean to laugh in the sense that I take serious any threat to an officer, but I got, as an old Southern white boy, an old gray-haired white boy, you better know what you can and can't do. You're not going to outrun too many people like that, but he did. He tried to do that. He's a part of the deep state. He works at the Department of Justice, and I bring this up because you brought this to my attention, Ted. This is from an OAN article. A report, Department of Justice employee fired after flipping off, giving the bird to a National Guard member in D.C. So this lady, her name is Elizabeth Baxter, she came to work and she was walking by, I guess, where some National Guard troops were, and she gave them the middle finger and then went in and bragged about doing it in front of the cameras in the lobby of where she worked to the security officer, and that footage has been found, and she has now been terminated because she told this guardman, F you, F the National Guard. Now, I want to say one more thing, and I'll turn it over to you, Ted. Keep in mind who the National Guard is. These are just common, when I say common, I mean they're just everyday Americans who have decided to continue, if they were in the military, or to serve militarily for the common good of the country. They couldn't be any more patriotic than that, and to say that is just, to me, inexcusable. But if you want to know how this is at the deep state, and you brought to my attention, Ted, because these are the people that stay in power no matter who the president is. Go ahead, Ted.
You brought up 2 points here. One is the level of the deep state. You look at the guy throwing the sandwich. He is somebody that hates the movement, the Trump movement, the MAGA movement. All right. He's there. He doesn't like it. He doesn't like the presence of the police up there, the National Guard. That's one guy. And then this lady at the Department of Justice flicking off the National Guard. And as you brought up, these are everyday people that have chosen to serve this nation, and they could be of any political affiliation. And they don't serve a president per se, as far as their ideologies. They serve the cause, and that cause is for making America a better place, more secure. And so, I want to come back to that. So you look at the deep state. We see this in the CDC. They didn't. Their director left because she didn't like the mandates coming out, so she left, and she's free to do that. But then other people did that too, and they don't like it because it's coming from Robert Kennedy, who was appointed by Trump. And so the deep state is there, and the best thing is it's being rooted out. Now this is going to take years to get out. This is going to take way past Donald Trump. But the idea is we've got to keep this kind of mentality running this country to root out that deep state. And I don't know if you ever can. It's like getting rid of a cancer. If you leave one cell in there, it can come back. The other thing is the hatred. Look at the hatred this demonstrates. A guy throwing a sandwich at a law enforcement officer. You've got to have a certain level of hatred to breach that level of decorum that you're going to strike an officer. This lady that flicked off the National Guard, there's a hatred there. But then you go back to our politicians, Gavin Newsom, we're going to beat the blankety blank out of them. And Karen Bass, you look at all these people on the left bringing out this hatred. You played those montages where people get up there, the Democrats, members of Congress saying the F word, and we're going to F this, we're going to kick somebody's rear end. Beto O'Rourke the other day was saying that. You don't see that on the right saying, we're going to effing, do this to Obama. We're going to effing do this. We don't hear it on this side. You hear it on that side. And I guess the question is, do people really want these people in charge with that kind of hatred that is not looking at the long-term benefit to this country or the direction of this country? And they're definitely not working to bring us together as a united States of America. And they don't have any role in public life. The scary thing, John, is there's enough people out there that elect these kind of people. And that shows you the divide in our culture, in our country.
Yeah, well, there needs to be a great awakening in general. And I think we've seen some of that with the election or re-election, if you will, of Donald Trump. Right. In that sense, I don't think necessarily all 77 million people were huge Donald Trump fans. I think they were just tired of what was happening. And think about this, because 50% of the country is still pretty much apathetic as far as they don't vote for whatever reason. They don't even register to vote, let alone actually vote. But if, like that woman that we showed about a month ago in New York, who was trying to get to work, right, and for her children, it's a black female trying to get to work, and the white liberal guys laughing, work and all that kind of stuff. So I do think that the left is flirting with disaster, if you will, if they ever awaken the masses of people that are apathetic, because most people, whether they vote or not, just want to take care of their family, go to work, maybe enjoy a football game this time of year, that kind of thing. I think most people want to just live basic, happy lives. And if you ever wake those people up, then the Democrats will be done. And I think we're flirting with that right now. I hope it happens, but we'll see.
Two things on that. One is you brought up, not everybody that voted for Trump really thought he was the best candidate. There was a great essay written by Stephen Anton called Flight 93. And I think it was written in 2016. It was between Trump and Hillary. Who should they vote for? And he goes into this hypothetical kind of a story of, if you get this person, this is where it's going to lead. If you get this person, you may not like him, but at least it's not a downward slide as fast as the other side. And it's an interesting article, and I read a critique on it by a guy that this was before the election, and you could tell he's just a flaming liberal. He was attacking Trump. But it's exactly what you were talking about. They were talking about this side versus that side. And, I forget what the other thing was, but it was really important. I'm sure it'll come back to me here in a minute.
Well, today is Labor Day, and of course, you always trigger these thoughts of me. But I said that there are certainly millions in that 77 million that weren't necessarily Donald Trump fans. I, on the other hand, have actually been a fan of Donald Trump ever since he came on the scene. And, I saw a lot of that when I was working up in New York City, because the thing about Donald Trump, love him, hate him, whatever, he's never been phony. You look at that guy and you think, oh, yeah, he's a billionaire. But, I could probably be friends with him. We could probably have a beer together. The Democrats always want to have a beer with somebody, that kind of thing.
Good,
Donald
but he does
Trump,
great.
yeah, I know that. But you know what I'm saying? Donald Trump is just, you can relate to him like no other billionaire you could, because you feel like you could just have a conversation with him and that he's actually talking to you. And there's so many things way before he became president, if you go back and look why he was so popular, is because he just was a common kind of guy when it came to people. I can tell you that I was around some of it up in New York, that the working people, the electricians, the pipe fitters, the plumbers, all the laborers, they all loved Donald Trump when I was in New York, because they wanted to work for him. I mean,
well, he understands business. He understands the regular guy, the regular man or woman out there working. He can relate to them where the elites can't. And I just think it's so important that you have somebody in office that can do that. Hillary Clinton couldn't, Elizabeth Warren can't, Joe Biden couldn't, even though he talked about Lunchbox, whoever that guy was, the plumber, Joe the plumber. But you can tell that's just all superficial. Trump really is out there with people. He walked onto the remodeling of the Federal Reserve and pointed out what a disaster it is. It's just interesting how they do that, and people relate to that because he's out there. He's getting his hands dirty.
Absolutely. Well, back to this story. We're talking about the deep state, and in particular, we're talking about this lady. Her name, I want to give her credit. Let me get back here and give her credit. Her name is Elizabeth Baxter, and she did work for the Department of Justice. But AG Bondi, Pam Bondi, said this, and I love this. She said, "This DOJ remains committed to defending President Trump's agenda and fighting to make America safe again. If you oppose our mission," now the government workers, you need to listen to this. "If you oppose our mission and disrespect law enforcement, you will no longer work at the DOJ." Now, see, this is the thing. And I really realized this during the first impeachment of Donald Trump. I've always known to a certain extent about the deep state, but these people that especially work in the executive branch, they work for the president of the United States. And I know that they're long-term employees. I'm not trying to argue against that, but they don't make the policy. They're supposed to carry out the policy. And the people voted in large numbers for Donald Trump to be the president of the United States. So it is his agenda. Now, does that mean he's always right? No. And there's a system. We're seeing courts, legislature, all that kind of stuff. But Donald Trump was elected for his agenda. And these people, and Pam Bondi is absolutely spot on with this, that if you're not a part of carrying out that mission, the door's right there.
No, you're absolutely right. And it's that deep state, that divide. And what we see in Washington, D.C., John, it's an ideological divide. And it's the people on that side, the Marxist communists, they want to call themselves Democrats. They have an image of America that is not aligned with people on our side, the right side or the conservative side. And I'm reading a book right now by Michael Meacham. And I need to get, or John Meacham, about Andrew Jackson. And it was talking about how South Carolina wanted to cede from the Union over tariffs, over different prices, and slavery. They want to keep it institutionalized. The other states wanted to get rid of it. That was in 1828, 1830. And it took that debate all the way, until the Civil War, which was in the 1860s. It took it 30 some years to fester to where it manifested into the Civil War. That's kind of where we have been for the last 10, 15 years. There's that divide, and we're seeing that chasm get wider and wider in this country. And that's the thing that we need to understand history so that we can avoid these things and correct them. And Trump is the right one to do it at this time because, like you said, leadership is doing something and you want to do what's right. And if it's not right, correct it. But don't be afraid to act because you might offend somebody. And that's the thing I love about him. He's going to do what he thinks right. If it offends you, I apologize for it. And if it's wrong, I'm going to fix it. And he's got the backbone to do that. And I don't want to use this word often with him, but he has the humility to say, hey, that was wrong. Let's correct it.
Absolutely. Well, you said something about the far right. And, I think you feel the same way as I do, but I believe I'm kind of with President Trump. He's not far right. He's just right so far. I mean, that's the way I look at it, kind of, Ted. He's just right so far. And
that's kind of like what did Reagan say? It's not like the left is always wrong. They're just wrong at what they think is right. So
they just know so much that's not true.
That's right.
But this whole thing, we talked about it when I said about the first impeachment, the arrogance of these people. Like those members of the State Department.
It's ignorance. You talk about
ignorance and arrogance.
Yeah, arrogance and ignorance.
Yeah, well, but we saw this with Comey and I call the gang. We're seeing them with John Bolton, all that kind of stuff. These people are so arrogant. President Trump knows better than anyone else the power of the deep state. He really does, because all you got to do is see this mugshot of him. I think we've got it up there. If anybody knows about the power of the deep state, it is certainly Donald Trump and his experience. But I want to ask you this question, Ted. What can we do? What needs to be done? What can we do? Because this is going to outlast Donald Trump. The deep state is so deep, it's going to outlast him. And I ask you, what can we do? And I want to ask, when I say our responsibility, I'm not talking about just you and me, but as a citizenry, what is our responsibility to clean up the deep state?
Oh, man, that's a great question. You're right. This will outlast Donald Trump. The fight stays on. We're going to be in a perpetual fight to preserve the freedoms and liberties of our nation, of the Constitution. What needs to be done is education. You and I, we platformed our program on educating, motivating, and activating people. They have to be involved in this. And you have to elect people that are going to do the right things. The majority of the time, hopefully more than not. And if they don't, throw them out. And you look at our school board. Who was that lady that came out about Hulk Hogan, another one, MAGA supporter?
Yeah, she's the chair of the local school board.
Is her last name Woolworth? I forget what it is. But she came out and said this. The school board went after her. But you look at the makeup of the school board. And if you listen to any of that hearing, they're talking how we need to teach basic civics. We need to talk about American pride in our veterans, pride in what this country stands for. So really, it starts there. So how do you change this? You elect people at the local and state level that are going to implement these things that carries on for those future leaders of this country that understand what this nation is and what this nation is about and why it's different and why it is exceptional. And don't elect people like Barack Obama says, we're no more exceptional than any other country. Give me a break. Tell me another country that has the level of success we have here and the amount of freedoms we have. And, then we can, I'll differ my opinion, but I don't see one. And I've been able to travel the world as you've traveled around a lot too. There's a lot of nice places out there, but I feel a lot safer here in America.
Yeah, well, without America, we would have not some of those nice places because it would be
the world would be chaos right now. It would be controlled by China and Russia.
No doubt. Well, on a side note here, I read this article just before we came on the air when I was flipping through a few things. Apparently, and this is pretty interesting, that it focuses on Tampa, but it's happening around the whole state. There is a drop in public school enrollment. And now there's a couple of reasons for that. One is people aren't having as many kids. And in some of these metro areas, like retirement areas like Tampa, not as many families are buying into the school system. But the other thing is, because Florida now has this voucher system, a lot more students, families are taking advantage of that and sending their kids in inner cities, places like Tampa, to private schools and or homeschooling them. That is going to have a major impact that I don't even think we can totally predict right now.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think that's the big reason of that. I look at my own daughter has 3 kids, and her choice that she's going to send her daughter to. It's her first year going to kindergarten, and they picked a private Christian school. And I think you're going to see more of this because people have woken up to what the educational system and the unions have been teaching our kids. They don't buy into that. And that's the neat thing about our form of government. It is an experiment, and we are free to choose those things as long as we're free people. As long as we, the people, keep the power, we can direct the direction of this country. And if we get enough people doing the right things, this country will live on for a long time beyond you and I. And I think that's our goal. And we never want to lose sight of the founding principles and the core values, because that is really what's at stake here. It's neither Republican or Democrat, white, black, conservative, or liberal. Those are American ideologies that the world loves.
Well, if you think about it, one of the things that they're so terrified, they being the far left, because they love the deep state, is what they worship the deep state. They're opposed to these vouchers and stuff really because if you're a critically thinking young adult and become that as an adult, or a young child becomes as an adult, you're not going to buy into this. So one of the main reasons they're fighting all of this is because they believe what Hillary said about the village, and her idea as a village is about controlling. They're afraid they're going to lose control of young people and then young adults and then American voters, and that is what terrifies them.
That goes right back to the UN and their one world charter, the one world government. I encourage people, the listeners, go to the UN website and look at the lists of things they say, and go to the children's rights. And it talks about the parents don't have the rights to raise these children. They're children of the world. And so the UN should dictate this. I mean, this is scary stuff, and it's real. And I'm not a fan of the UN. I think we ought to pull out of it. I think we fund over, depending on the program, we fund over 25 to 27% of all the budget of the UN. And we've got one of the smaller, populations in the world when you look at some of these other countries, and they go against us all the time. I say pull out of it, move the UN to where it in a country that needs it, like Rwanda or Nigeria or somewhere there, and then we can be an advisor. But I don't want to be burdened by the UN. And we're seeing a movement, John, pulling out of the WHO, the World Health Organization, pulling out a lot of these multi-international organizations that want to dictate what we do in the United States. And if it got real close under Biden with the World Health Organization, where Tedros, I forget the guy's first name. He's the director
Boutros Ghali?
Yeah, Boutros Ghali. No, this is a
different one.
Organization. Biden was going to cede the sanctity or the sovereignty of the United States over to the WHO, World Health Organization, dictating policies to us on the next pandemic or threat. We would have to listen to the WHO. Biden wanted to do that, and it got blocked.
Well, thank God for that. Well, one more story before we go, and that is the Chicago mayor has issued an order not to cooperate with federal agents, because Pritzker, the governor who says that this is a manufactured crisis, there's no crisis in Chicago, he's changed his tune slightly just because he wants to run for president, and basically says he doesn't want National Guard troops, but he's willing to accept more federal agents and all that. But the Chicago mayor has basically poured water on that, because he's issued an executive order that if federal agents come into, not talking about National Guard, federal agents come into Chicago, that the Chicago police and their justice system is not to cooperate with them. Now, I'll turn this over to you after I say this. According to Chicago police statistics, now this is just Friday and Saturday, doesn't count yesterday and today, over the Labor Day weekend where there is no crisis in Chicago, at least 35 people have been shot and 5 fatally just Friday and Saturday, Ted. So what do you think about this idea of not executive order, not complying with and cooperating with federal agents?
I think it's a losing proposition for him. There's no way he can win on this. Think about what he's telling people of his town. We don't want help to make you safer. Now, you look at what Trump has done, and this is, again, Trump is bold, he's brash, he's unapologetic for so many things, and he says, DC's got a crime problem. We're going to fix it. You look out at LA when the fires were going on out there. Karen Bass is in Kenya, at the inauguration of a president. On another continent, her city's burning. Trump says, and they had the riots, and so Trump sends in the troops, and she gets all upset. Gavin Newsom, the same way. How dare he come into my state? But you know what, in reality, is you get Marion Bowser, the mayor of D.C., says, you know what? It's gotten better. Crime has gone way down. Gavin Newsom, he doesn't want to say that, but all of a sudden he's got a bigger presence in law enforcement in his state. We're going to use him more now. We'll have to see how effectual that is. And this guy in Chicago, this is a losing argument. And as you said, Governor Pritzker, who is a flaming Democrat socialist and a billionaire, he's an oligarch. He is a kind of changed his tune a little bit, and I think you're going to see more and more of this. The mayors that go against this, they're going to be out of office because the people want security. And I know you've got that segment from that lady that spoke at the DNC coming up.
Yeah, we're going to do that real quick in just a second. But just to cap this off as far as the numbers, not a crisis, no reason to cooperate with federal agents, no reason to have the National Guard there. There were 573 murders in just the first 6 months of this year in Chicago. And we're not talking about just people wounded, shot, and injured for life. Actual murders, 573 in the greater Chicago area. How many murders are acceptable before it's a crisis? And if you disagree, I would say this to people out there that may totally disagree with you and me, Ted. If you disagree with Donald Trump's solution, what the heck is your solution?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, 0 is acceptable. I mean, the whole thing is, if we're a civil society, none of these things should happen. I mean, there's going to be accidents where people die, but murder, it's not acceptable. And for a mayor to say, no, we don't want any help with those kind of statistics, again, is reason he shouldn't be there. Who was the mayor before that? Littlefield or?
No, what was it? She looked like Beetlejuice. Yeah.
She had the same problem. I mean, they had a crime-ridden city, and so Chicago goes from bad to maybe worse. And it's just, they are so against.
I think it was Lightfoot, Lori Lightfoot.
Lori Lightfoot. That's right. I know it had a foot in there, but it's unconscionable. These people will accept that, and I know the citizens won't. And I think you're seeing citizens throughout the nation waking up. I mean, you saw in the last election, and again, that's our job to educate, motivate, and activate people. That's
yeah, absolutely.
Here.
Well, you mentioned this because we played it last week, but I think it deserves played again. I challenge people, what is your solution? Well, the Democrats had their summer meetings in Minneapolis, of all places. And this lady, her name is Anisha Rahman, she tells you what they think about, and she got applause for this line. Listen to what she is saying about crime specifically. Check this out.
Really lurid, awful stuff that is a crazy, crazy visual. Don't take the bait, because most Americans are more worried about how are we going to address mental health issues, the visible homelessness that we see on streets, and how do we deal with mental health and other issues that drive the sort of random incidents that scare all of us. That's what you should be talking about. That's where you should be focused. Don't take the bait in talking about migrant crime or carjackings or the things that actually don't matter to that many Americans. And then go to the issues voters care about. Where does
I don't know
Trump
how
go?
much she's getting paid, but I'm sure it's quite a bit. But here she is speaking to the leadership of the Democratic Party and saying, oh, you know, stuff like migrant crime and carjacking. American people don't care about that.
Yeah,
I
you
mean,
don't care
my
about it unless
God.
it happened to you. You know, you don't care about a carjacking or about crime or, you know, you look at the rampant shoplifting that has been going on, and the Democrats have gone all in for this and saying, oh, it's not their fault. You know, we can't prosecute. If they really needed those Louis Vuitton purses, if they can justify they needed that, we're not going to prosecute them. You get this kind of garbage and a breakdown in society. And for this lady to go on there and promote this, I hope they keep her all around the nation, followed by AOC and Sanders, and talking about the oligarchs, how bad they are, but yet they take money from the Pritzkers and the Soros and all these other left-wing people and foreign entities. You know, it's a losing message. God bless them. I hope they don't get off of it. And I hope it drives people to our party. I don't like parties unless they're Christmas parties, but they drive them to our side of the conservative values, of the constitutional principles. And the more they're out there on the left and going further left, the more they come to our side. And you see that in these enrollments. You look at the redistricting maps that are going on. This is going to be a good time for America. It's the golden years, as Trump talked about in his speech. We've entered the golden years of America, and I think we all should embrace that. And I want to know who can embrace that. And if you can't embrace it, you may not want to live here.
Yeah. Well, I think I'm going to coin a new phrase. We're the right so far party. But here's the thing. I don't think you're going to
Doesn't sound like you're all the way in there, John.
It doesn't. You're never going to change these people, Ted, at that level of stupidity and belief. I guess we're just going to be forced to pray
Unless they
for
get
them.
carjacked. I hope they don't, or have a crime, you know, then they might change their story. I don't know.
We may just be forced to pray for them. Well, Lord, help us, Lord, and bless everybody on this Labor Day. I hope you've enjoyed the show as much as we enjoyed bringing it to you. Please like what we're doing, share it far and wide, support our sponsors, become a sponsor. I'll give you the last word, sir.
I just want to say, have a great Labor Day. We appreciate everybody's labor and what you do and what you toil with your time and your sweat equity to make this a better country. And Black Time Blue Jeans is coming up. And make sure you go there. Come by our where John and I will be. We'll be broadcasting from there. We've got a table. Come by and visit with us. Let you know what you do and don't like. Come as a sponsor. Feel free to sign up as sponsor. And we look forward to seeing you there. It's going to be a great time. You're going to hear from your future leaders of the state of Florida and possibly the nation. So God bless you all. Take care. John, always good to see you, man.
Absolutely. Peace out, my friend. Safe travels back home.
Y'all take care.